Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here to a Friday. Finally made it to the weekend here, about 10:38 a.m. California time, July 26, 2024. Latest activity here on the globe shows continued earthquake swarming there on the Big Island of Hawaii at Kilauea Volcano with a 1.7 earthquake. A lot of earthquake activity ramping up here in the Texas area as well. Some moderate earthquake activity being reported just outside the Snyder, Texas area, where they've seen a 5.1 shaking things up here a couple hours ago. This earthquake was felt broadly all across the beautiful state of Texas, even up into portions of the Oklahoma area. Let me back out a little bit and show you guys what's going on here. They are dealing with some earthquake activity. They did see a 4.9 here just a few days ago in that same area. Now the magnitudes here appear to be getting a little bit on the larger size in terms of increasing magnitude levels there. So the intensity was not a tremendous shaker, but as you know, a lot of people worrying, is this going to lead to something bigger out here? I want to show you guys just a couple. Well, first, let me show you guys where this is taking place here, and then we'll get into the graphs of what is causing this earthquake activity. If we go to the satellite image here in this area of Texas, it is littered with a lot of oil fields, a lot of fracking operations, wastewater injection wells. These are wastewater ponds out here, and there's a lot of them. So this 5-pointer stirring up literally right next to some wastewater ponds. This area right here looks like some type of holding tanks. Either way, there's a lot of them in this area. There may be a couple new ones on here since this satellite image was took. I don't know when it was snapshotted, but a lot of oil fields. So what's going on in the oil fields? Why are they producing earthquakes? I just want to show a comparison graph here real quick as well. This was put out a couple years ago for the state of Oklahoma. Okay, so this just goes to show, that even Oklahoma has seen a large uptick in earthquake activity following the oil boom or fracking boom, which started around 2010 there in Oklahoma. And as you noticed, it took a little while. These earthquakes don't pop up as soon as you drill an oil pumping operation. It takes a little time for the stress to build up. And then when the North American plate is under a lot of stress, that's when you see a lot of these earthquakes taking place across various oil fields and fracking operations, and then also across many states out there. So really kicked up here in 2015, 3,000 earthquakes there in Oklahoma. In fact, they had a big one too that caused some damage around, I can't remember the town, I think it was up in Enid. But so ever since that bigger earthquake up there, Oklahoma put a restriction on the wastewater injection wells, and look what happened. Things went back down. So clearly a good connection between the earthquakes and wastewater injection wells. Here's a little article on how it works, what takes place. They inject the wastewater fluid into deep geological formations there. Although the wastewater is pumped at low pressures, this type of operation can disturb natural pressures, which is the North American plate is always under stress out here. So this type of operation can disturb natural pressures and stresses over large areas several miles from the injection wells. The tectonic faults underneath the geothermal and oil reservoirs are often precariously balanced, right, in neutral, so to speak. Even a small disturbance, so to speak, there to the stress system there can cause earthquakes. So the consequences of fluid injections are easily seen in Oklahoma and Texas. So California has been getting some of these as well. So the next question is, are we looking at something bigger out here? Is it possible we could see something bigger? I think so. Or it's possible we could see maybe a little bit of larger magnitudes across various areas out here. I don't see the whole area collapsing. I mean, if you really look at the satellite imagery out here, you can see it if you fly over this region, the Permian Basin area out here. Look at this place. You think it's a city, right? On a map, yeah, this has got to be a city. No, it's not. Zoom in closer and you'll find out. There might be a city surrounded by this activity. What city is this, by the way? Let me see here. Oh, Denver City out there in the Permian Basin area, West Texas area. I haven't really seen a whole lot of earthquake activity specifically around this region, but I'm sure it's coming. Look at all those oil fields out there. In fact, there's oil fields in town, oil pumping operations all over the place. Look at all those. So one would think, could this whole area collapse and produce a big earthquake? Potentially. I mean, that's a lot of disturbance out there against the area of the natural faults. The area of interest is just right over here where we're seeing that earthquake swarm right now outside of Snyder. So we got about 16 earthquakes here in the last 24 hours. If we go back the last week and see that other event and the sequence of events that followed it, let's see here. That brings it up to about 75 earthquakes here in this area of Texas, just east of Snyder, Texas. The largest one so far, 5.1. It appears to come in waves, right? The North American plate stress out here against the plate boundary and in general across the North American plate comes in waves. It's not always increasing pressure in this area. It may stabilize for a little bit, and then things may lock up across various areas of other plates, while the North American plate here may undergo some pressurization changes here. The tectonic world is pretty crazy, but even away from the plate boundary here, the North American plate gets strained. There's a large North American craton here, not a crouton, a craton, that sits in the middle portion of the country and extends up into Canada. That's a relatively stable landmass. It really hasn't seen any deformation there in no telling how many millions of years, while everything else around it, and it covers right about down here in the northern Texas area, maybe Oklahoma as well, and then goes up like this, kind of a horseshoe type pattern in this area. That's the North American craton. Everything else around it gets crunched up and warped, and mountain ranges get created. A lot more stress occurs out here in these regions that allow it to get to form mountain ranges and whatnot. So, it's possible we could be seeing some further large-scale activity out here. I don't think we're going to see anything above a 6 out here. I think for the most part we're looking at some 5s stirring back up out here across various oil fields. And this is just one. If you take a look, let's go ahead and look at historical data out here real quick for the Texas region. There's just a lot going on out here in the world. We're not going to do 2.5. Well, no, because that'll probably have 100,000 earthquakes there on the map, so I don't want to shut down my computer accidentally. So we'll go 4.5 and above, and we're just going to go back here to the year 1000 and draw a little area around the beautiful state here of Texas. New Mexico's been getting a lot of oil fields out, or a lot of earthquakes out here as well in their oil fields. And, well, I don't want to cover the New Madrid zone. Right about there should be good. And see what we have. Make sure the bells are off, which they are. It's loading. It's probably going to be a lot. 4.5 and above. Well, not really. Not really. So, but you got to remember those other smaller quakes are in there as well. I'm just kind of looking at these larger quakes that took place out here. If anything, it looks like the migration of larger quakes are going more inland. We did see a lot of earthquake activity out here in the Pecos, Texas area recently in the past few years. And some of those earthquakes getting in the 5 range as well. But it looks like we're digging deeper here into the Texas region, kind of towards the heart of Texas over here with this latest quake, that 5.1. But far as the largest activity out here goes, looks like a 5.8 up in Oklahoma, 5.8 over here in western Texas back in 1931. Now this is tectonic. This is fault system stress out here. There's a couple different faults. The West Lobo Valley Fault Zone. I don't think they were drilling, pumping operations out in that time frame. Excuse me. Down here as well, mountain ranges, 5.7, 1995. Let's see what we got here for the satellite image. I don't really see anything of any major interest down here. You know, Texas does have a little bit of fault systems out there. Extreme western Texas. Look at the land. You know, you can see the hills and whatnot, and various fault systems out here. And there's some faults up here as well with the Delaware Mountains. But when you add the oil pumping operations out here, you intensify the potential of seeing earthquake activity out here. And this area of Texas has a lot of these pumping operations. You can see them out here, scattered out and about the area of Texas, where we've seen, you know, some larger quakes than the 2s and 3s. These are all above the 4.5 range. So I think, if anything, as we head into the future here, that we're going to see more increasing magnitude earthquakes out here, larger magnitudes in the 5 range more often, because a lot of these oil fields out here, and there's a lot, some big time ones out here that have not been hit by larger movement. They may see a lot of smaller quakes, but eventually these bigger ones may hit a lot of these other oil fields here. Let me show you guys the back out of this one and go here to just the last 30 days of earthquake activity here in this region of Texas. Show you guys a little bit down here south of San Antonio, some oil fields out here outside of the Stockdale area. Oil field, oil field, oil field, oil field, all over the place. But right now, in the last month, it seems to be focused in this area of Texas. Here's the northern end of all this clustering going on. Got to watch this area maybe in between here. I know there's oil fields all over the place out here. That might be due here for some shaking. There they are. These look like might be some older ones out here. They don't look active. But either way, you know, my observation here is that we're going to see continued earthquake activity out here, and some of it can get in the 5 range. I don't think it's going to be a 6 or 7 or anything bigger, but the damage is done out there, and the activation of various faults that maybe some ancient faults out here they're activating by performing all these wastewater operations, wastewater injections, hydraulic fracturing, a whole bunch of stuff going on out there. So, if you felt that earthquake here recently around Texas, you might want to be prepared for some more, because I think it's coming. So what do we got? 16 earthquakes so far total tally. 5.1 there in the mix as well. Oklahoma up here getting a little bit of earthquake activity as well out here around the East Campbell gas field here. A couple smaller quakes this morning. But overall, you know, generally this earthquake activity here is going to become more common. All right, let's check out the West Coast here. Got an earthquake right on the Cascadia subduction zone. Goodness. 2.3 earthquake off the coast of Oregon. That is not associated with these fractures up at the surface. These are all fracture zones from the Cascadia at the surface level. But this earthquake is 26 kilometers deep into the Cascadia subduction zone. That's a subduction zone earthquake there. Not a big one, but a little bit of movement happening there. And it looks like it is due west of where the tremor activity is occurring. Let me show you guys where the tremor is occurring. And it makes sense here because we got further subductions here, slippage of the plate. Let me go back the last 2 days here. Hold on a second here. Just want to go. I can go the last 3 days. We'll go from the 23rd to today, and there was a little bit of earthquake activity up north here as well, or tremor activity. But the tremor that we're seeing right now in the last day, I just want to cover the last day. I'm just going to go back to yesterday because we're focused on that one little earthquake. That's 26. There we go. 25th, yesterday. Right around the Eugene area, just south of Salem there, a handful of smaller tremors down into the subduction zone. And if you think about it, you just go due east here, north of Eugene, in between Salem. And that, well, this is a little south, but roughly in the same area, we got that earthquake activity upstream here from that tremor. And not a big one, but it's a 2.3, so that leads me to believe that we're further straining out here, right? Tremor activity along the Cascadia is the process of the Juan de Fuca plate as a whole. I know there's 3 separate microplates here, but the Juan de Fuca plate as a whole is being subducted and shoved underneath the North American plate here. The North American plate boundary line is right here at the Cascadia subduction zone. That's where the subduction zone begins. Locked area sits offshore. This is where it builds up enough energy to produce a 9.0 earthquake out here. The last one was back in 1700. So as this landmass here is being subducted, there's various processes being involved here. The building up of further strain, tremor activity occurring downstream, the deep activity creating these volcanoes there across the Cascades. And, you know, as that tremor activity occurs, you get the slippage going on here, meaning that this plate here is subducting further down into the deeper regions there, and adding further strain up at the surface level. Well, not the surface level, but upstream here where the locked area is. This whole area is rising, you know, due to the tectonic stresses out here, and one day it will produce a large damaging 9-pointer or greater earthquake, and this land mass here along the coastline will drop as well. So scary scenario, but it has happened before many times, and it will happen again in the future. We're looking at 324 years of built up strain out here. So definitely, I think the key to predicting or forecasting the next Cascadia in the future, you know, hundreds of years down the road, is to watch how the tremor behaves prior to any major subduction zone earthquake out here. I think that's the key to watching it. And we have seen a decent amount of tremor here recently in the last month or so, but it's not, really not out of the normal. If you look at the past, 10 years, 15 years or so in this graph, there's periods of uptick and slow tremor, where there's no tremor at all. But, it definitely seems like it has increased here in the tremor department ever since we've seen those earthquakes offshore here. But that wouldn't account for all the tremor activity down south. But it has been it's been a little interesting out here across the Cascadia with these swarms of quakes up here across the northern end, little bitty smaller quakes, various smaller quakes out here across the Cascadia. I don't know how many we had. Got a little bit. Sometimes it takes them a day or two to add them on, but as you can see, there's been a handful of earthquakes specifically right there at the Cascadia subduction zone area. Some of those in the locked area at the shallow one, somewhat shallow. This earthquake fairly deep, and a little bit up north as well. But we'll continue to watch. It's it's got its time, and it's in the future when we're going to see that large damaging earthquake. The best thing to do is be prepared out here. Mount Adams area seen a 2.1. Interesting. South area of Mount Adams. Mount St. Helens, a little small microquake out here as well. This area has been seeing a little swarm of movement. If you look at the last 30 days here, we got just about 89 earthquakes or so around the Mount St. Helens area. Most of that underneath the summit area down into the magma reservoir, about 6 to 7 kilometers deep there. Nothing changing, no major changes there, but we did see a swarm. We've seen a similar swarm there last year as well about this time. So, I think when you get further activity here in the tremor department, underneath this area, that adds and increases the potential of seeing these volcanoes stir up as well, because you got the melting layer down here underneath this area. It's not an instantaneous event. It takes a little while, but I think increasing tremor obviously adds to the potential here of seeing increasing recharging of the magma areas here across various volcanoes. Northern California, pretty quiet, aside from the Clear Lake volcanic field. One little odd earthquake off the San Andreas Fault here from yesterday. They added it in. I didn't see this last night. I would have noticed that. It's a little weird one out in this little basin here. Oceanic basin. The rest of California down here, got a couple smaller quakes around the San Jacinto Fault zone, stretching over towards the San Andreas Fault, the southern end. Nothing big, just a couple smaller microquakes here today. Really not seeing anything of major value, but obviously we got the North American continent out here under strain. Seen increasing movement across the oil fields. Nothing going on in Yellowstone. One little earthquake, but let's just go double check, see what we have. There's the 5-pointer showing up. Oh, man, that's a nice signature. That's that 5-pointer down in Texas showing up there a couple hours ago, showing up on Parker Peak. A couple other stations out here picked it up as well. Pretty crazy. But as far as local earthquake activity, nada. Zero. This here is a wind event. Pretty strong wind event there from yesterday and early evening as well. Today, not quite as windy. That darker blue shade there that you see across various graphs, that's the wind. I think they had about 40 to 50 mile per hour winds out there yesterday. No earthquake activity. None. Except for that little negative quake there. All right, let's look at the global view here. Hawaii, man, this just rocking and rolling out here with earthquakes in Hawaii. We're getting a little bit, look at this little migration down here, little pattern drifting away from the main swarm area. That's what we got to watch here. There's a couple different scenarios with all this earthquake activity taking place here. A lot of pressurization underneath this area, but if there's not enough force here underneath this area to break through, there's been some old lava flows out here before, so it's possible we could see a fissure event take place up here, or if there's not enough weak areas up here of the crust, this may get displaced further, potentially out and about here across the lower East Rift Zone. There's a little bit of migration here. So let's go check out the Hawaii activity on the volcano hazard site, where the volcano remains a yellow and advisory, even after seeing probably a couple thousand earthquakes here in the last few days. Let's check out the latest update here first. That was put out, well, let me see here. Yeah, this was put out yesterday, so they have not updated the latest status here yet. But as you can see here on the map, a lot of earthquake activity. We're going to check out the seismograph station here, right in this area, where there's, it really hasn't let down at all. There's just continuous earthquake activity there. No intense mega events like we had seen here in the past couple days. And I'm talking about these large-scale events that are clustered with hundreds of earthquakes in a short amount of time period. There was 2 of them here in the last couple days. There's one right here in this area, and there was another one That was yesterday, if I remember, early morning yesterday, like 4 or 5 in the morning. Since then, it's let up a little bit. We haven't seen that repeat event yet. It looks like it had, been occurring every morning or so, and so far we haven't seen it. But you never know; it's still a little bit early over there in Hawaii, so maybe we're just starting to see a little bit of the signs of that intensified earthquake swarming coming up here. But either way, we got a lot of earthquake activity, folks. A lot of pressurization going on here in this area. I'm just watching this region down here, though. It looks like it's starting to migrate, or it could be just due to the overall pressure across this area. Because if you look at these little quakes here, this whole area is under a lot of pressure. Tilt meter in this area shows leveling off here ever since that magma intrusion that took place here in this area. We lost a good decent amount of volume of magma from the summit area off to the upper east rift zone here. It's amplified a little bit there, but it's remained steady. Up at the summit area, let's go check this out here real quick. Are we working? Am I live? Am I still here? It looks like we are. What's going on? Oh, there we go. It took a little minute. That's a little odd. There was some type of spike right here around the summit this past 2 days, so that would be yesterday. But overall trend going down. We're starting to level off a little bit, but that could be because that magma may be backflowing there a little bit towards the summit area. Hard to say, but here's the droppage. Here's that intrusion that took place on the upper east rift zone. We lost a huge volume of magma from the summit area. That's the last past week. Here's the past month. Very noticeable. Magma intrusion off into the upper east rift zone, which we see obviously on the tilt meters, and the earthquake activity has taken place here. So it's a waiting game, folks. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. There's a couple different scenarios, so we just have to see what's going to take place. It could just continue to build here until a fissure event takes place, eruptive fissure with eruption, obviously, in one of these areas, or we could see that migrate further to the lower middle east rift zone, or maybe even the lower east rift zone out here over time. Really not a whole lot going on here across this area. For now, holding pretty steady, but we'll continue to keep an eye on it. That's about all we can do right now. Looks like a cloudy day out there. 59 degrees. Oh yes, please. Thank you. I would love that type of weather. I'm almost tempted just to sleep all day and then stay up all night so I can enjoy the cooler weather out here. It doesn't really cool off all that good out here in Northern California right now. But anyway. All right, so on past that, we'll continue to keep an eye on the Kilauea volcano. Further out and about across the western Pacific here, deeper earthquake activity returning around the Japan area. Got some older movement quakes and a couple newer quakes down there in New Zealand. I want to check and see what the largest quake is so far today. That's going to be a 5.5 from yesterday. So technically, wow, Texas takes the chart for the largest quake in the world just after midnight today. Well, it ties it. Okay, so it ties the largest quake here, 5.1 in the for the Tonga area as well. That's doesn't happen too often. But who would have thought Texas is earthquake country, right? Well, that's happening, and it's going to continue to happen there with those fields out there. All right, so back to the globe here. We got New Zealand, a couple threes. There's that 5.1 here in Tonga. Pretty quiet here across the Solomon Islands region. Typical clustering going on here across Taiwan, southward into the Indonesia Islands area. We did see a little bit of earthquake activity here yesterday in the Java Trench. We even had a 5-pointer just north here off the coast of Sumatra. Not a whole lot of migrational factors being played in yet across this area. A lot of times we'll see this migrational pattern go up around the Andaman Sea and eventually hit the Himalaya areas, northern India. That's just the area that often sees a transfer of pressure, so to speak. But the general crunch zone is in this area around Taiwan, southward into the Philippines and the Indonesia Islands area. Look at all the arrows pointing in this direction, from the Australia Plate, Eurasia Plate, the Pacific Plate, North American plates coming down here from the north, adding strain on this area. But this is the crunch zone right in here. I mean, it's always under a lot of earthquake activity. That's why they get so much earthquake activity on any given day out here, because it's just the crunch zone. I don't think it's officially named that, but that's what I like to call it, because that's where all the plates tend to create a lot of havoc. A lot of subduction zones out here in the Philippine Trench and various other areas, the Java Trench. But there's a lot going on out here. That's why it's always like this. So nothing out of the abnormal, nothing out of the norm, I should say, for now in this area. Further out to the Mediterranean, a little bit more active out here today. Various areas along the plate boundary are getting hit. Plate boundary there in the red. Let's see what we got out here. Looks like a little bit of earthquake activity. Pakistan, one earthquake there in Iran from yesterday. Looks like the Sea of Crete area getting hit. 4.6 there this morning. Nothing big, but definitely looks like we're getting some elevated activity out there right now. South Africa, 3.6 down there, looks like. Atlantic Ocean, awfully quiet. That's one thing we haven't had in a little while, is a bunch of earthquake activity out here. Normally, with these spreading seafloor centers out here, normally we'll see a couple 5s or 6s. This has been quiet. Let's see what we've had here in the last 30 days out here. Really not a whole lot. That's very odd. More so down south. A little bit there in the South Sandwich Trench, obviously. But, yeah, nothing out here in the last week. It's a little crazy. Iceland, let's double check that, because we are getting inflated there across the Svartsengi area, where we've watched the last couple eruptions take place there in this area around the outside the Blue Lagoon and the power plant region. Wonder why that's going a little slow there. Not a whole lot of earthquake activity, and that's the key to watching the potential here for the eruption around the Svartsengi area. There's not a whole lot going on here in this area of interest for now. Blue Lagoon over here, Svartsengi power plant, previous eruptions confined here to this area, Hagafell, Slingerfell region, but also earlier in the eruption phases there, we've seen a fishery event open up here towards the northern end of Grindavik, and it's still a possibility that we could see it even further down into the this area. Always a possibility that could take place, but for now, quiet there across that region in terms of earthquake activity, but it's getting inflated. All right, let's check out South America. Pretty quiet, not a whole lot going on. Typical microquake activity out there. There's really nothing of any major earthquakes. Those are 2s and 3s. Alaska area, not a whole lot going on up here either. Just 3.4 right there on the Aleutian Trench. All right, space weather activity. It was rather interesting yesterday to have an event pop up here that really wasn't, I don't think it was forecasted. Let's see, did Kevin even mention anything? Yes, he did. The BZ component of the interplanetary magnetic field is currently tipped south. The solar wind speed is also at elevated levels following an apparent CME passage earlier today. That's why we've seen a little bit of the auroras kick up out of the blue. It really wasn't forecasted. Here's this one here on the 27th. But, yeah, we peaked up around the KP index of almost 5. Excuse me. Goodness. Hopefully I'm not getting what Missy Mimi's had. Or it still has. 4.5 it looks like was the KP index. Peaking up a little bit of auroras there across the higher latitudes. But right now, it looks like things have calmed down. Here's tonight's forecast, which is forecasted. I don't think this event arrived that early, a whole day early. I think that was just an odd timing to have the BZ component south with a little bit of solar wind flowing in. This is for tonight. Could see maybe a repeat of what we seen last night with the auroras up there across the higher latitudes. The view line here dipping down into a portion of the tier states. But Canada, Alaska area, probably get a good chance of seeing the auroras later tonight after dark. Aside from that, as far as flaring goes, looks like some type of long duration event here. Maybe a little bit of sea flare activity. But let's see what we got here. Let me take a look at these sunspots here. This area is getting a little bit complex here. It's currently facing the Earth, and notice all the different darker colored areas closing in on each other, creating a more complex sunspot. That's growing and quite rapidly. So we'll watch that area. That's going to be 3762. A source of potential flares here. 3762 now is a beta gamma delta structure, but it has grown since last night, so that's continuing to get advanced and may produce some stronger flaring. The beta gamma delta and beta gamma structures are the ones that produce the more stronger flares. C flare at 99% chance for the forecast, M flare at 60, X flare around 10% chance or so. Watch for the auroras tonight there across the higher latitude states, and of course Canada and Alaska, anywhere up there in the higher regions. And far as let's see what else we got. Well, let's check out the fire. Okay, let's go over here to the Alert California wildfire viewing area and see what we got. Man, it looks just like yesterday. Look at the live image here. Looking towards a park fire from Bald Mountain Butte number 2 here. This is east of the fire. Unfortunately, this area here has not burned. Right? Notice the smoke going north. So right here on the screen would be a northward smoke movement. So we got winds out of the south, which is pushing the fire up north, but also at the same time it's going uphill. Look at this newer area here on the crest of these mountains getting hit. All this area right here, there's nothing stopping this fire from burning up here to this camera. This area did not get burned during the Dixie fire, I think is what it was called up here around the Lake Almanor and the Chester area. They are in trouble if it gets back up into this area, and it looks like it's heading that way. Here's another view from Flea Mountain. I don't know if I want to go for a hike up there or not, called Flea Mountain. Getting some cumulus clouds up here again, pyrocumulus. Yesterday there was a fire tornado that was produced out here with this fire due to the extreme heat and erratic winds and uplift taking place out here for this fire. Let's go over and check out the latest statement on this and check this out. Let's go to the park fire right here. It lost containment. So it was at 3% containment last night. It dropped down to 0. It jumped Highway 32 over here going up into the mountains, into the densely populated forested areas. Not populated in human population, but in forestry terms there. Check out the acres now. 164,000 acres. That's a mega fire. It kicked up really fast here in the last couple days. Normally it'd take a week or so, couple weeks for a fire to get this big, but it did it in about 2 days here. That's absolutely horrible. The hot spot areas here are going to be in the orange. The darker orange are the newer hot spots. Here's some smoldering, some continued burning areas there in the lighter orange. See all that darker orange right here? That is getting into the forested areas, and it's headed up into the mountains. Even though we got a south wind here, see these wind bars here going up this way? That's south wind. This is getting into the heavier, higher mountain terrain. A lot of trees up here. That's bad news. Very bad news. Also down on the southern end here, approaching the Paradise area. Paradise, California is right here. Portions of Paradise are underneath a evacuation warning there. These could get upgraded here to an evacuation order should this fire increase where it's headed. I mean, these are all brand new hotspots here, satellite-based hotspots, getting into some forested areas here, all dry, a lot of dry grass. You guys seen it yesterday on the live stream. Bad scenario right now, very bad scenario taking place. A big bunch of it up here, very thick hot spots, heading up into 32. Well, it's past 32, and you got Lake Almanor, Chester area all up here. Hopefully they can get a hold of this and contained before then, but there's nothing but a lot of trees up here, a lot of unburned trees. This area did not get hit from the previous fires. Also taken off here to the north and to the west as well across certain areas. A lot of dry grass up here, a lot of brush. Not so much in trees, but we've had a couple good winters here of heavy rainfall, and that has allowed the vegetation here to grow quite rapidly. But in the summertime, we're not a wet state out here in the summertime. This is our dry season. We don't get any rain, aside from some thunderstorms maybe up in the higher Sierra Nevada mountains, but everything's dried out. All that elevated vegetation is now a tinder matchbox out here, just blowing up like crazy. So lots of fire growth out here today. Lots of it. Heading up, and this is a little bit more concerning here for me, because this is going up into the higher elevation range. There's towns up here that just got through dealing with this with the campfire a few years back, remember? So hopefully we don't get a switcheroo on the wind, but regardless, we got these canyons up here. The fires like to make their way up canyons slower, but still it's heading up that way, and that's not good. Definitely not good at all, folks, at all. Let me check out let's see if this is the one I want. Yeah, this is the one. I want to check out the smoke plume out here today, see what it looks like. We're going to run the last 120 loops here from last night to... Did I pause it? Where's the play button? Something's going on here. I'm still streaming, right? Hopefully someone's not trying to shut me down. This should have easily loaded. Let me refresh it here real quick. I don't know. That's weird. We'll wait a second for that to load. Maybe people are checking this out. But for the information there on the fires across the West Coast area, you can check out the Watch Duty app. They have it free. Or if you want to see these cameras in general, these are the Alert California wildfire site, that is showing these cameras up here. Well, look at that. This has got to be the fires just south of here, because the smoke plume's heading north on this image. So this is a camera facing east. Here it is right here. So yeah, that fire is approaching that camera. This one here I think got burned. Let me see here. Yeah, look at that. The fire blew through there. All that undergrowth there, all that dry brush. A lot of trees out here as well. Some of them got hit, but it's mostly that quick moving fire that that is burning all that brush out there. It's survived. The camera survived. That's pretty crazy. Here's Tehama. Wait. That's the one I just clicked on. This one's offline. That one looks like it didn't make it. Here's one out of Los Molinos. But I don't think Los Molinos is up there in the fire. Let's check out a view from the Magalia area. Yeah, look at that, man. It's burning like crazy. Huge smoke plumes. Very similar to yesterday, maybe even more, a little bit more intensified. Okay, so we got this going. There's the fire. Man. Look at this southern end right here, though, starting to blow up a little bit more. Watch right here towards the end of the loop right there. And that's an area that is closer to Paradise on the southern end. So we got to watch that, folks. A lot of stuff going on here right now. A lot of big fires. A lot of earthquakes, right? A lot going on out here in this crazy world we live in. But the best thing to do is be prepared. And if you are underneath an evacuation order or warning, probably best just to get out of there, because things can get crazy when the orders come in. All right, everyone has to leave, right? Is the order. It's best to leave when you have an evacuation warning. That way you can get out of there, beat the traffic, and hopefully avoid any, traffic jam ups. That's, not a thing to be involved in when there's a wildfire heading that way. See a lot of canyons up here, folks, that are, the fires can dip down into and head off in that way. So we'll continue to watch it and keep an eye on it. I don't know if I'm going to be out there today getting any video or not, but if I do, I'll go live so I can share the view out there. I'm definitely not going to go down that road I went yesterday. That was just a little crazy. We've seen multiple cop cars going down to those folks' houses there. But anyway, that's over, done with. Nothing happened, which is good. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening, folks. Friday, so enjoy the weekend the best you can. It's going to be hot out here. About 105 today in Northern California, but it's supposed to be 88 degrees tomorrow. What a cool down. I'm going to show you guys real quick here. Today's temperature, up there around low 100s, but tomorrow, it's going to be nice. Low 80s, or upper 80s, upper 80s for a daytime high. That's actually below normal for once. I'm excited. Unfortunately, I think the wind is going to be picking up a lot. We got a strong delta breeze. Mountain ranges are going to be, unfortunately, dealing with some stronger winds out of the south as well. So, oh man, it's just, that fire is going to explode even further, I have a feeling. So anyway, we'll cover it. Cooler weather tomorrow. I wouldn't mind lower 80s, but I'll take, 91, 89 Chico. That's a lot better than 105, so I'll go with that. Can't complain, right? Have a good one, folks. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this evening. Stay safe and be prepared.